What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of The Girl Who Talks Sports, the podcast where we talk sports and other girly things. I am Sam Cardona, and thank you guys so much for tuning in today, which, oh my goodness, is probably one of the biggest shows of The Girl Who Talks Sports to date. We had such a special guest on this week. As you can probably see from the title of this video / podcast, Joey Mulinaro of Barstool Sports took the time out of his day to not only answer my direct messages, but to actually take time out and come on the show and do an interview with me. And it was so much fun. And I'm so excited to share it with you guys. We talked about how he got involved in Barstool, how he does his impressions. He gave me a couple impressions, which was really, really fun. He's a huge Steelers fan, so we talked some off-season NFL, we talked Steelers, we talked J.J. Watt, we talked a little Carson Wentz, which we will talk about us too, you know. We got stuff to talk about for Carson Wentz. And like I said, it was so much fun. He is so sweet and such a nice guy. And Joey, thank you again for coming on. So we're going to get to that interview in just a second, but obviously we got to do our plugs first. So first things first, guys, don't forget to subscribe on all podcasting platforms. Google Podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever it is that you get a podcast from. The Girl Who Talks Sports is there. Subscribe and leave a review. That's super important. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, The Girl Who Talks Sports. We post full-length podcast episodes on there of me actually, talking to you. You can see my face. And we put out extra content videos as well, so make sure that you go and check that out. And finally, don't forget to follow us on our socials, Instagram and Twitter, TGWTS Podcast. So make sure you follow us on there for updates, fun things. I yell a lot. It's a great time. And before we get into our interview with Joey, gotta do a quick little affiliate read for you. And it has to do with podcasting itself. And I know that, I was struggling a bit when I first started my podcast. So this is going to be something that's really helpful for you guys in terms of getting it started and getting your podcast out there. And that's Buzzsprout. So Buzzsprout is the best and easiest way to start your own professional podcast, such as this one. They have already helped over 100,000 people, including myself. And basically, they get your podcast out on every podcast platform, as I was just plugging. Every single major one that you can get on, they have available to you. They also provide you with your own podcasting website, audio players to drop in other websites, detailed analytics, tools to promote your episodes, so on and so forth. And also Buzzsprout provides you blog posts, other podcast episodes, all sorts of things to help you kind of make your podcast better. Every single week I get an email from Buzzsprout telling me, hey, if you need help with this, here's a blog post for it. Here's a podcast episode that we created for you, so on and so forth. It's super helpful, and it's very easy. So to start your very own podcast, and you can get a $20 Amazon gift card. No joke. It's just a straight up $20 Amazon gift card for signing up for Buzzsprout. Click the link in the show notes, and that way Buzzsprout knows that you were sent by me, the Girl Who Talks Sports, and you help support our show. So if you want to start a podcast, the best and easiest way to do that is Buzzsprout. All right, guys, thank you for listening to my quick little read there, and let's get into the long-awaited interview with Joey Mulinaro. All right, everybody, so we are joined today by Joey Mulinaro of Barstool Sports, which I am so excited to have you on. I appreciate it so much for you taking time to come on, and we are going to get into a lot of things today. But Joey, thank you so much for coming on today.
Sam, no problem. We've talked on Twitter a few times, and I'm glad that we could finally talk and meet via Zoom. So glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. And it's been a crazy time, things are wild right now. So Zoom is basically the best way to do all this. And obviously, I believe, are you in Indiana right now?
Yep. Indianapolis. That's where I was born and raised. That's where I still am right now. So yeah, holding it down in Indy.
Very cool. Very cool. So, you know, some people might not know who you are. I'm sure a lot of people do at this point in time, because I know I told some of my friends, like podcast friends, about this, and they were also like geeking out about just as much as I was about it. So I
Yeah.
kind of want to hear, like who you are, like at Barstool Sports, like what you do there, and kind of like how you got involved in Barstool Sports.
Yeah. So, what Dave Portnoy described it as when he hired me was essentially I'm just a cast member for Barstool. So, I don't technically, I do a few different shows that I'm on and everything like that. So I have the schedule in terms of that. But other than that, I wake up every day and I'm trying to figure out what could be a funny video to do, what could be a funny segment to do, what would be a good blog to write, what would be a good show to start, things like that. So it's just like the ultimate freedom. I don't have, again, that's a pretty popular question that even like, trying to explain my job to my grandparents is a very hard thing to do. Even my
Yeah.
parents sometimes don't get it. So,
Right.
yeah, it's different, but yeah, I mean, I'm a personality, a writer, a host, for Barstool.
Very cool. And I remember, like, I think I followed you on Twitter before you were even on Barstool because of all of your impressions and things like that. Did they reach out to you and say, like, hey, do you want to, like, come on and be a part of the Barstool team?
Yeah. So, the NFL Combine is usually in Indianapolis. It's obviously not this
Right.
year,
Right.
because of the pandemic and everything, but, typically it's here every year. And typically, the guys from Pardon My Take, Big Cat and PFT and Hank, they come into town for it, with the rest of the NFL world pretty much. And so last year, about that time, I got a message from Big Cat and was like, "Hey man, been following you, been liking your stuff, everything like that. Kind of, I'm going to be in Indy. Want to see if you wanted to have a conversation." I was like, "Yeah, absolutely." So from there, we linked up, and I actually got to do a couple videos with him and PFT, and hang out with them for a couple hours and just get to know each other a little bit better. So that was surreal and super cool, just because like the rest of the world, I listened to PMT and
Right.
followed those guys forever. So that was super super cool. And so from there, he gave my contact info to Dave, and then Dave Portnoy and I were having a conversation and figuring out what comes next. So that's the gist of it. And then like the week later, I think a week later or 2 weeks later, I was on a plane out to New York to see the office for the first time and meet everybody. And so it was a really, really special time.
That's just so cool. I mean, to
Yeah.
just kind of be reached out to by Big Cat and PFT are kind of like the two guys that I first, when I found out about Barstool, was like,
Sure.
Pardon My Take was like the podcast, the sports podcast. So that's really awesome. And I think you were doing like Andrew Luck impressions at that point of like being in Indianapolis and the combine being there. So I'm curious, kind of like, were you always doing impressions, or like did you kind of realize that you could do it, or where did it all start?
Yeah, I told people a lot that I always consider myself like a living room impersonator or like entertainer for a while. Like I was always a kid growing up that whether I was just like with my friends or at a family get together or whatever, I was always the guy that had the impression of like the teacher, or was like making fun of the coach, or like our friends' parents, or like my grandpa, or you know what I mean, something like that. And so that tied in with like I've always wanted to be in like an entertainment, field, career, things like that. Eventually I was like, all right, I should probably start taking a shot at impersonating people that are more public figures, and so from that point on, I tried to narrow down people who I thought that I could impersonate, and started going from there. And Andrew Luck was one of the first ones, back in 2019, almost 2 years ago. So come a long way from there, but yeah, I've in some capacity I've always been performing, impersonating, entertaining for since I was a kid.
That's so cool. And so do you kind of just like feel it out? Like you're like, okay, this is what Nick Saban would do if he was, hanging out with Coach O or something like that. Like, how do you find the people that you realize that you can do them really well?
Yeah. So you have to, at least in the way I go about it is like, it's so much of like just trying to embody that person fully, like not only, how they talk or how they sound, but like you said, like what would they be thinking? What's
Right.
what makes them tick? What would they be doing in a certain situation? And that's one of the things I enjoy most is trying to come up with these different situations to put these people in that aren't your typical scenarios that you see them, whether they be on TV or on the sideline or whatever it is. So yeah, it's a full embodiment. It's not only the voice, but it's the mannerisms, and then it's the context of what they're saying and everything like that. So yeah, I take it very seriously. I as fun and as silly as it is, like there is a lot of minute details that goes into, in my opinion, what helps make an impression go from, oh, it's pretty funny, to like, oh wow, okay, this, you know what I mean?
Right.
So yeah.
Oh my gosh, that there I didn't realize how much effort goes into these because they seem so like effortless that you kind of just like, oh, I'm gonna film a video today, and then you just kind of do it and then you put it out there. But I mean, I
Yeah, I
think all
appreciate
content
it.
is like that though.
Yeah, definitely. It like, what was I about to say? I lost my train of thought. Shit. No, but it is. It's like it's not just the 30-second video or the 60-second video that people see. It's the whole process that goes into it for whatever, whether if it's just a sketch or an impression or a podcast that you're doing or
Mhm.
anything like that. And I mean, there's like definitely like I don't usually just like grip it and rip it. Like a lot of times I'll record myself. I'll be like, I could work on this. I could hit this word differently. I could do this mannerism even more. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I'll do multiple takes and kind of feel it out, and then once I feel good enough about it, then I'll let it rip.
Absolutely. And I know that you have actually like kind of spoken to a few people you've done impressions of, like Chris Collinsworth is someone that you've actually been able to interact with. Do you find that they enjoy your impressions, or do some people kind of say like, this is like ridiculous, I can't believe you did this? Like, what kind of feedback do you get from the people that you're actually like impersonating?
Yeah, I haven't gotten any real negative feedback, really. Thankfully, it's funny you mentioned the Chris Collinsworth, and so I interviewed him and had him on my show before I even did an impression of him. So,
Oh,
so that was like a reverse thing. But then he followed me he follows me on Twitter and everything. And so then after we had the conversation on my show, then when I was doing those videos, he's commented on a few of them and retweeted them and stuff. So, he seems to enjoy them. Colin Cowherd has done the same thing. I know Coach O hasn't addressed it publicly, but I know for a fact, like people in his corner, his camp have told me, that he watches them and enjoys them and everything like that. I still don't think Nick Saban has seen him just because he's so dialed in on what he does that
right,
he doesn't really have
right.
time for it. But no, and then there's certain people that like I've interviewed. I've interviewed like Chris Ballard, the GM for the Colts, Kirk Herbstreit, and those are two guys that people have kind of been like, you should do one of them, you should do one of them. And so I asked them straight up, and it was just like, would you you've been requested, kind of, would you care if I took a shot at it? And luckily both of those guys have been like, oh, I think that'd be great. Yeah, I don't
Right.
care. People typically, as long as I'm not like making them look bad or like
Right.
being an asshole, like they're just like, they get it and they know I'm having fun with it. And I always say that, and Cowherd actually said this when he gave me a shout out. He's like, yeah, like impressions like the sincerest form of flattery. And it is, because, most of the people that I impersonate, it's like people that I've listened to, that I've watched, that I respect, that I look up to for so long, that I've been able to get them in my head and be able to kind of like become them when I impersonate them in a way. So.
Right. I'm curious to think how Saban would actually react to those types of videos, because he'd either have no idea what was going on or have like a very strong opinion on it, I feel like.
Yeah, he'd have no idea nor a care, or if he did, he'd just like it'd be a very tamed response. It wouldn't be too bad either way. He'd kind of just and go on to the next thing. So
he's got a program to
but
run.
me and his daughter are actually good friends, or like internet friends.
Oh,
His daughter Kristen, she from the first one that I did, she like enjoyed it, thought it was funny, and so she followed me. We talked quite a bit, and she enjoys them and she gets it and has fun with it. So pretty interesting, fun little connection there.
that's really fun, because some of these people are like, they maybe they aren't involved in social media or they on the internet like someone like Nick Saban, but to have a connection like that is, I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah. Sorry,
Yeah.
no, I was the college football championship is in Indianapolis 2022.
Okay.
So I'm hoping hopefully we can get Alabama and LSU in there, because I'm an LSU guy, but Bama, because I want to be able to. I know I would think that if they're there, I'd be able to meet with Kristen and Coach Saban and everything like that. So
Absolutely.
We'll see. Fingers crossed.
that would be very exciting to see Saban and Coach O in the same game that you would be able to attend.
Yeah.
I'm there. That's
My
awesome.
head would explode. Yeah, exactly.
So I know that you also make videos with Ben Polizzi, which is a friend of yours. I'm curious to like how you guys linked up. Like, were you friends beforehand, or did you kind of like just end up doing the same thing?
Yeah, me and Johnson, as we always say in the videos, me and Ben have known each other for pretty much our whole life.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's a pretty cool story. I think it is, at least. We grew up on the south side of Indianapolis together. He's 3 years older than me. And we went to the same Catholic grade school. And then he was a senior when I was a freshman in high school at the same high school. He was like our PE assistant and for my class. So like, we got to interact and goof around there. And we always just kind of like mesh. It was always just like, it was like, oh, Polizzi had respect for me. I had respect for Polizzi. We kind of, one of those weirder, like older, younger relationships where they kind of like take you under their wing in a way. Right. And we always kind of had that. And we always knew that, we wanted to do something a little different, everybody, all of our friends, which is fine. They just wanted to like get into business or go into be a nurse or whatever it was. Again, right. Fine. But that just wasn't for us. And we always wanted to do something different. And we always like to make people laugh. So I was working after college. I was working at the group of radio stations in downtown Indy. Ben started working there as well. And we just kind of weren't like getting the shots that we wanted. We were two young guys coming up. And so we wanted to kind of go out on a limb and make a name for ourselves, or try to. And so we were just like, hey man, let's get together and start like doing something. Let's try to be funny, try to create stuff together. And it was about 4 years ago this month actually that we put out our first videos and everything. And from that point on, we've always stayed. We hosted a podcast together for like 3 years before I joined Barstool. And yeah, we still make videos together regularly. And so it's been really cool to see where we've come from growing up to, what we do now after, how we began with all of it to where we are now has been super cool.
Yeah, absolutely. That's so funny, because you just mentioned that you went to Catholic grade school, and I also went to Catholic school my whole life. The Catholic priest things that you've been putting out recently are so spot on. They are fantastic. I love those.
Yeah, it's some people might be like, well, it's a niche audience. I'm like, not really. There's like 1.5 billion Catholics in the world. Like that's it's a pretty big audience. So I see what they mean though, to a certain extent. But there's just, I am proud to have been raised a Catholic and still am proud to be a Catholic. And but there's, you can't deny that there's just so much material, with priests, with church, with the lifestyle that a lot of us shared growing up and going to Catholic grade school and whatnot. So yeah, there's a lot of comedy there. Thank goodness.
And then there's just like those specific priests that you've been doing. Like people have had several priests throughout their lives if they're Catholic, and there's always one that's just like that just needs to just focus in on something and try to just relate to everyone else. And
Yep.
it's so spot on. And I think you just put out the like post church like interview.
Yeah, had to get Father Tom's thoughts, on how mass went. So
I loved it. So just so you know, that for me was perfect. I'm part of that audience for sure. Good. I love it so much. But going back to what you and Ben were doing, how did you kind of create those two characters that you do, Johnson and Schmitty, that just kind of, these two office dudes that are just like always have to go over the top and do all this stuff? Like, where did that come from?
Yeah, so pretty much and I mean, I'm not unique in this because I think you ask any creator or, comedian, that does anything like this, all of their characters, all their sketches, they come from inspiration out of your own life, right? Well, no matter how big or how small the inspiration is, there's something that you've seen or been a part of that you say, you know what, if we ramp this up, this could be really funny. So that's what it was. Like I said, we worked together at the group of radio stations in Indianapolis, and so we got to experience a lot of like people in the office because they had the business side of the sales team, so it wasn't just the on-air people and whatnot.
Right.
You had all the managers and the salespeople and the AEs, and so we got this office experience of just the BS that you talk about in there and the different cliches that you fall back on, and honestly, a lot of our friends and people that our friends associate with, like I said, a lot of them work in like finance or like finance as we call it, and they're business guys, and they just can't wait for happy hour, and like even on Wednesday they'll go out and get half price Long Islands or whatever it is. So it's like a culmination of all those different things, and we just finally landed on Johnson and Schmitty, and then because it seems like all those guys always like just go by their last names or their nickname, and they're just all about drinking, all about making it to the weekend. So it's just stupid stuff. But again, I think just like we were talking about with the priest and how you can relate to it, I think one of the reasons why those characters and those bits are so successful is just be at the root of it. Everybody's like, oh my God, I have a Schmitty that I work next to, and at the cubicle that like he's always trying to like do a virtual happy hour, and we always just want to tell him to shut the fuck up. You know what I mean? Like, so I think that plays a big role into it as well.
That's so funny because it's true. Everybody has, even if you don't work in an office, there's just always that one guy, even like out at a bar, there's always somebody just like that. So and you guys do it perfectly too. Like you get those things spot on. That it's
the writing that goes into those takes probably longer than anything I or we do, just because it for a 30, 45, 60-second video, the writing has to be so perfect in terms of the open, and then this, because the whole thing is all just setups and then dunks,
right.
alley-oops and dunks. So you have to find, okay, what are the perfect ones of those, but then also how do they seamlessly transition that can be considered to be a real convo? You know what I mean? So it takes a while, but it's worth it for sure.
That's really interesting. That's crazy. That I don't really think a lot of people realize how much effort and like time goes into certain things like this. Like I know I like, from my point of view, I create a podcast every week, and I do it over the course of like 2 or 3 days. Like I do this like this part of the podcast, and then I'll do my own part of the podcast. Then I have to produce the podcast and find out what we're going to talk about and everything like that. So I don't think a lot of people realize how much effort goes into things like that. And even for a 60-second video, could spend all day, 2-3 days on it.
I mean, absolutely. And it's, I think a good way to relay that to people who don't work in, a media or creative field like we do, is I remember, growing up when you'd see like a stand-up comic or on TV or your parents would talk about him, I always thought, I was like, man, that person's just naturally funny, which they probably are, obviously, but they just go up on stage and they just grab the mic and they just start talking about funny stuff.
Right.
Completely the opposite. Once you come to find out that, no, that's a very well thought out, written, put together set of jokes. That's why I call it an act. You know what I mean? And so it's the same way with, just like you said, the podcasts, videos, things like that. But it's a common misconception for people, for sure.
Absolutely. And I what I kind of want to fall into is kind of the sports aspect of things here, because technically we are a sports podcast, so I got to talk about a little bit about sports. And I know that you are a Steelers fan, and I'm curious because I have all of the Steelers fans that I know, including my own brother, are not from Pittsburgh. And obviously, you're saying that you were born in Indiana, and I'm sure that you've kind of rooted for the Colts throughout, your life. But how did you become? You never rooted for them ever?
No.
So how did you end up becoming a Steelers fan?
So in the 70s, the Indianapolis Colts did not exist. There was not an Indianapolis professional football team. They didn't come to Indianapolis until 1984. So my dad grew up throughout the 70s, coming of age when the team of the decade was the Pittsburgh Steelers. And so as a kid that didn't have a team in his hometown, he naturally went with the squad that was like, the fucking Steel Curtain, the best teams ever. Like, so the teams that was always on TV that won 4 Super Bowls, like, so he rolled with them. And then by the time the Colts got here, he was already a teenager and already like well ingrained into his Steelers fandom. And so he just stuck with it. And then when I was born and my sister was born, and, like, my dad was a huge Steelers fan, and we watched the Steelers on Sunday. We didn't watch the Colts. So, you know what I mean? We go to Pittsburgh to see a game. We didn't go to the RCA Dome and then Lucas Oil unless the Steelers were playing there. So, it's, man, one of the most insane things that has been over the last year and a half when I've, been lucky enough to grow more of a following and then join Barstool is just, one, the lack of like understanding and awareness of how that's possible to become a fan that way. And then two, the absolute vitriol that people have if you don't root for the team that is in your city. I mean, it's a phenomena that I really hate. It's very, very annoying. Because people like, call me a bandwagon or like question my fandom or like say I'm the worst because I root for this. I'm like,
right.
It was like my blue eyes. Like I inherited it. Like it's like a genetic thing. Like,
right, exactly.
You know what I mean? And so it is what it is. But I see. So you're a Giants fan, and then your brother's a Steelers fan?
Yes, and my dad is a Jets fan.
Whoa.
So, and my mom just roots for whoever she feels like rooting for that day. So we are all different teams in this house. My dad roots for the Giants, though, because they are a New York team, so he'll root for them. But he grew up a Jets fan, and my brother kind of was like, I don't want to root for the Giants or the Jets. I want to root for someone else. And my dad was like, well, the Steelers are fantastic. And my brother just immediately just jumped on that, and he was like, okay. And then just diehard Steelers fan, like would take a bullet for that team if he wanted to.
Good for him. Yeah. I love it. I have the tattoo of all of our Super Bowl titles right here. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
That is so cool.
People question, but it is what it is. Like one of my wedding gifts, I was lucky enough, we entered the wedding reception, and this was sitting on the head table where me and my new bride sat. It's an autographed helmet from Chuck Noll, the coach during the 70s, 4-time Super Bowl champ. So it's a real thing, I mean, people always like to give me a hard time about it, but it's a very big part of my life.
No, absolutely. And I'm telling you, like my house is like so strange on Sundays because, like, I mean, we watch Red Zone now, so you get all the teams. But if the Steelers are playing Sunday night, like I have to mentally prepare myself to sit with my brother and watch this game, because if they start doing poorly, it's over. he's like, this team, I can't
Oh, yeah.
believe what they're doing, this and that. So it gets really intense sometimes. But I'm always so curious because I also know another Steelers fan who's from Southern California. He's never even been to Pittsburgh. So I'm just like,
Well,
they're all over the place.
the Steelers are one of the few franchises in all of sports that, everybody in the post game interview wants to say, oh, I just want to thank blah 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 nation. No, like the Steelers are one of the maybe 5 teams in all of pro sports that is a legitimate thing, that there is diehard, huge, like every road game. I mean, this, like every road game is going to be not really that much of a road game because the contingent for the Steelers is so strong everywhere. So
Yeah. I can remember, I think it was last season, the Steelers played the Chargers. And apart from, a bunch of Steelers fans being there and also Juju went to USC, that was not a Chargers game. That was covered in black and yellow everywhere. I was like, they should just be playing in Pittsburgh at this point. It's ridiculous.
Yep, absolutely. Yep.
But yeah, that's
crazy. You guys are from New York? You're based in New York?
Yes, I live in New York. We all live on Staten Island. But yeah, it's I don't know why. My dad grew up a Jets fan, like right after they won the Super Bowl, and then after that it was just like downhill. And he just kind of stuck with it because he was like, oh, we got another year, and obviously now we're here and nothing has happened.
It's like my coworker KFC at Barstool, he's a Jets fan, right. And I swear Jets fans, it's a personality type of the people that just like to have something to bitch about. Like they flock to the Jets because they know they're always just going to be able to be like grumpy and in a bad mood and have something to complain about. Like they don't want to root for a good team when it comes down to it, because that's like, well, we're happy. What is this? This isn't any fun. Like, I mean, that's how KFC is. So I don't know if that's bad, but I think that's a big majority of Jets fans. So
yeah, absolutely. And I know KFC is also a Mets fan, so I think that he just loves to feel pain at this point.
Yep.
But exactly. Yeah, it's a fun dynamic, and that's why I always want to ask people who are Steelers fans, because I have literally never met a Steelers fan actually from Pittsburgh. And I used to work in South Jersey where my entire coworkers were all Philly fans, like Eagles fans. And I was just like, does anybody like the Steelers? And they're like, no, this is an Eagles facility. We're doing Eagle stuff. I'm like, okay, all right. But like, it's crazy.
Yeah, I was actually in Philly this past October when the Steelers and the Eagles were playing. They were playing in Pittsburgh, but I was in Philly for the Barstool Sports Sportsbook house. And I remember walking from my hotel to where the sportsbook was, and I had my Franco Harris jersey on and my Steelers hat on. And I kid you not, in the hotel lobby and then right outside the hotel, immediately I had one person walk by, just said, "Go Birds." And then the next person, I was standing outside and they were like, "We're in Steelers on this day, huh?" And I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "I think the Birds are going to bury him today." And I was like,
oh my God.
All right, we're going to see. So I'm walking through Philly. I have my Steelers stuff. That's no joke, man. Philly people are they're legit with that.
Yeah, they're pretty hardcore, but I think that, in my opinion, the Cowboys are considered America's team, but I don't believe that. In my opinion, Steelers are America's team, because I like to see the Steelers win, not just because my brother's a fan, but just because they're such like a blue collar, hardworking team that like you don't want to see them not do well. And I'm kind of curious, what were your thoughts throughout this past season? Because, we went so long without them losing a game. How were you feeling as there was like that little bit of decline towards the end?
Yeah, definitely wasn't fun. I knew that we were good with the potential to be really good. But I also knew that, we had a few things break our way, and, eventually it was going to find water's going to find its level a little bit. I just didn't expect for us to sink and not find our level instead. So, a brutal end to the season. At least they beat the Colts, just because being in Indy, like I can take that away from with all my family and friends who are Colts
Right.
fans. That's always good. But yeah, I mean, the past 4 Decembers and Januaries have just been brutal for the Steelers. Coach Tomlin always talks about like unleashing hell in December, and that's the exact opposite of what has been done with this team
Right.
since 2017 when we
Mhm.
lost to the Jags in the divisional round. So something's got to change there. Got to figure that out. But I mean, we still got a lot of players. I hope that the end of last season serves as a teaching lesson for a lot of the young guys, like Claypool, and even if
Right.
Juju comes back, and really the whole receiving group, and hopefully it, can be turned into a positive, in 2021. So we'll see what happens with quarterback. I know a lot of questions there, but
Right.
still got a really good defense with a hell of hell of a lot of good players. I mean, I'll always ride with my guys, so I'm ready to go.
So there are a lot of off-season talks around the Steelers right now, including the fact that we don't really know what's going to go on with Big Ben. And I think you put up a blog post today about possibly drafting a quarterback. Like, where are your thoughts on Ben? Do you think it's time to kind of start wrapping it up? Do you want him to stick around another year? Do you want to draft a new guy? What like, as a fan, what would you want for your team?
Definitely think it's time to wrap it up. And that's Big Ben's been the quarterback since I was 11 years old. I mean, I
Right.
don't really know any other franchise quarterback or staple quarterback for the Steelers. I was really young when Cordell Stewart was doing his thing. I remember that briefly. Tommy Maddox came in there and kind of just righted the ship a little bit until you got to Big Ben. But other than that, that's all I've known. So it's not out of disrespect or dislike for Big Ben at all. That's just how it goes. Like, eventually it's going to be time to hang it up. And, so I do think it's time for that. But I will say that we're just in a tough spot because, obviously, unless they put together a lot of draft picks and try to move up to get one of the guys in the first round this year, I mean, Big Ben will definitely give you the best chance to win. I don't care what anybody says in 2021.
Right.
So, I don't really know what's going to happen. It's going to be that is definitely the biggest question. Whether or not they bring him back, how much he's on contract for a lot of money, but they said they're going to try to renegotiate and
Right.
save some money there. I don't know if he's going to be down for that. Who knows if they, again, like maybe if Mac Jones is there at 24, do they snag him? Do they
Right.
package, a player and 2 or 3 picks to try to move up to, 13 or 15 and try to get Trey Lance or one of those guys? I don't know. But I do think it is definitely time to start making life after Ben Roethlisberger happen.
Absolutely. And I think that as a Giants fan, I'm kind of in the same boat. I mean, Ben and Eli were drafted the same year, and we lost Eli last year to retirement. And also, they took him out, they put Daniel Jones in. So I can kind of feel how you guys are feeling right now after, I basically became a Giants fan around 2007, which is when they were winning their Super Bowl. So at that point in time, like I hadn't known any other quarterback. I only knew Eli, and even like the Kurt Warner stuff that was going on earlier, like I really was too young to be processing that kind of thing. So
Sure.
I feel you guys. Like it's a rough situation to be in. You don't want to ever see this guy that, has given you Super Bowls in the past. Like you don't want to see him go, but it's sometimes like I just keep picturing that meme of Big Ben with all the ice like wrapped around him, like on all his joints. And I'm like,
yeah.
it's rough. It's
My
really rough
guys,
for him.
my PMT guys, they like to throw it out there a lot. It is funny. I mean, I get down with the jokes and everything about how he doesn't practice or the walking boot. I think all that's funny, but it like I said, it's just how it goes. Like that's just
Yeah.
time. It just 17 years. Like you can't really ask for much more than that. Time to let it go.
Are you on the JJ Watt train? Do you want the trifecta of Watts in Pittsburgh next year?
Yeah, I mean, That'd be great. Yeah, I think it'd
Yeah.
be the amount of storylines would be just nauseating, and the shots of his parents being up in all their parents being up in the suite or whatever would be. They'd probably set up a damn like live stream that would be picture in picture of like the Watt household and then the Steelers game like side by
Right.
side, just because they'd be talking about it so damn much. But honestly, as much as I think it would be fun, they're really strapped for cash, not going to outbid anybody. He wants to, obviously, rightfully so, go to a team that gives him a really good shot to win a Super Bowl. And objectively, I don't think I don't think the Steelers are, top 3 or 5 team that would fall into that category for him. So unless he just is like, man, the Steelers are a legendary franchise, I want to go out with a legendary franchise and I want to go out with my brothers, then more power to him. But I don't think it's gonna happen.
Yeah, with I think it's 30 million over their cap space right now. Unless JJ takes a pay cut, I don't really see that. Realistically, I don't really see that happening. But it would be interesting if he ended up at the Browns and you guys, they played each other twice a year. I think that could be equally as exciting.
Yeah, I mean, the Browns are just,
Yes,
exactly. It was just so rough, and good for them. I get the whole, they've never been forever. They've won anything, and they beat the Steelers finally in the postseason, and they, like tip of the cap. That's great, but a lot of their fans are just so insufferable, and you just hate the Browns, you hate them. So it is what it is.
That's fair. That's very, very fair. And that Steelers Browns game was, trust me, I in the house with the Steelers fan, it was very rough for all of us, I think.
But brutal.
Yeah. I know you're not a Colts fan, but there had been talks about Andrew Luck coming out of retirement. Like, what are you kind of thinking about that?
I would love it for my selfish reasons, because then I could do more videos of him and impersonate him and everything like that. But I think those rumors were kind of quickly, downplayed and shot away. He's a different bird. He's a definitely the cliches of walking to the beat of your own drum. That's Andrew Luck to a T. He's not built like everybody else, where you grew up like idolizing football players and your dreams to be a football player. It just so happened that this guy was an incredible football player, and his first job out of college, his entry level position was just so happened to be the number 1 overall pick. So
right.
I really think that's how he looks at it. And so for him to be like, hey, I'm moving on after 8 years or 7, 8 years or whatever it was, like, it's just like if you or I, once our first job, we were like, yeah, it's time to do something else. So, interesting circumstances for Luck. And now the Colts have Carson Wentz, and, hopefully for his sake, that the reuniting with Frank Reich can do him well and get him back to where he was in 2017 and 2018. So we'll see, they got a quarterback for a few years, a young guy, a mobile guy, after their little stint with Phillip Rivers. So Carson Wentz, I think they'll be all right with him.
Yeah, that was going to be like the last football question that I asked you was, did you kind of feel like Colts fans are excited for Carson, or do you think some of them are kind of like, oh God, now we got this guy to deal with?
Yeah, it's definitely mixed. Definitely a mixed bag. I think that, you have the people who just looked at last year and how bad it was, and they just go off of that and they're like, oh man, we're getting this bum and he's blah, blah, blah. Yeah. But, my people that I talk with are really excited for all those reasons that I just mentioned. A change of scenery, a guy that's proven that he can be really good in the league, and you're getting him back together with, the guy that orchestrated that, and Frank Reich, and he's going from Philly to Indy, where, Indy's one of the top 5 offensive lines in the league. Got a really good running game with Jonathan Taylor. You know what I mean? So I think it's just if you take away 2020 and all the bad, look that was for Carson Wentz there, and you look at the rest of it, plus all those things I said, I think any logical Colts fan would be like, all right, I feel like we're getting a pretty solid deal here. Let's see how it plays out. But I feel like we're getting a pretty solid deal. So,
yeah, I would have to agree. I would think that, the offensive line is the main thing there. And with Carson Wentz actually able to throw to receivers who will catch the ball for him, maybe we'll see a resurface of 2017 Carson Wentz,
Sure.
Like
it's all you can hope for,
Right.
And the Colts a lot like the Steelers, where they're in a tough spot to where their roster is good enough to be in the mix in the first round or second round of the playoffs, and but probably not be a Super Bowl roster. So then you're in this purgatory of like, well, we're not high enough to draft a Lawrence or Zach Wilson or whatever hell the next guy, but we're not bad enough to just be like, or we're not good enough to just ride with this guy. We got to figure something out. So they made a move, and we'll see what happens.
Right. So what I want to do now is kind of like an impromptu impressions game that I kind of like made myself. So I have like 2 cups. One of them has names in it of people that you've done impressions of.
Okay.
And the other one has like situations, very like mundane situations in which they would be in. And you could kind of give like a quick little impromptu impression of what you think those guys would do in that situation.
Cool.
Sound good?
Yeah.
Cool. All right. So let's see. I'm doing it at random. So first we have Colin Coward.
Okay.
And Colin Coward is responding to mean Twitter comments.
This is the Head. Joey, it's funny. I'm on Twitter every now and then, and people like to troll me. They like to think that they're getting a jab in. You know what I mean? People on Twitter are a lot like Baker Mayfield. They're a lot like they wear their hats backwards. You don't want to trust a Baker Mayfield, just like you don't want to trust a Twitter troll, sir.
I love it. That was so good. All right, let's do another one. All right, we got Nick Saban.
Yep.
And Nick Saban is explaining how to make a grilled cheese.
Hat off. It's funny. You don't wear the hat. All right. How do you make a grilled cheese? What do you think this is? I run a football program. I'm not in the kitchen. That job for Miss Terry. If you want to ask about grilled cheeses or how to make anything, you need to take that question to her. Other than that, I don't have time for it. All right, so just quit asking.
Oh my God, fantastic. All right, let's do one more. I don't want to.
All right.
I don't want to overwhelm you. All right, let's see. We got Andrew Luck.
Perfect. And
he is greeting trick-or-treaters on Halloween.
I like this one. Okay. Oh, that's very cute. Are you a princess by chance? I have a daughter myself, but no candy for her, or trying to raise her on more of a vegan type of diet. But I hope that's okay for you. I'm not going to give out candy. I don't want to rot your teeth or make you get sick to your stomach or anything like that. So here's a few things of cucumbers and a little bit of apples as well. He dressed as, what is that? Darth Vader? Do I kind of sound like Darth Vader? Yeah. All right. Happy Halloween. Yeah.
Oh my God, I can picture that. Like, Andrew Luck is definitely that house that gives out pretzels or like quarters.
Like a toothbrush or like a book or something. Yeah.
Oh, that was awesome. Thank you for doing that. That was so cool.
Yeah, it was fun. Those are good scenarios. Those really, sometimes I'll try to think of different things for my videos, or if I hop on somebody's show and sometimes the scenarios I'm like, I don't really have a lot to work with here, but those are really, really good.
I'll give you for free. I will give you the 2 other scenarios that I thought of.
Yeah.
Which was you did one of these, getting the wrong coffee order at Starbucks. You did that with the Paul Giamatti.
Yep.
Which I thought was so funny. And then the other one is at the grocery store admiring the fresh produce.
That would be a good one for like Fallon or something. Yeah.
You know, I had Jimmy Fallon in this cup too, and I was like,
Yeah.
kind of wish that I had pulled that one out.
Well,
But you can
now that
totally
gave me
take
some
those
inspiration.
ideas.
So maybe I'll put one of those out. So
That would
yeah.
be so cool. All right. Well, overall, Joey, this was a ton of fun. I really appreciate you coming on and taking time out of your day to do this with me because it was fantastic. And I really appreciate like everything. Like you've always responded to my Twitter DMs, which, you know, kind of makes me geek out, but I really appreciate it. And you've kind of inspired me to keep going and doing what I got to do and just
Yeah.
keep on pushing. So I really, really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Yeah, no problem. You've always been very kind. So anybody who, I deal with a lot of mean people on the internet, shocker, but anybody who is kind, I try to do my best to let them know, how much I appreciate it and everything like that. So absolutely keep pushing. Love it. This is a great time. And thanks for having me.
Of course. All right, everybody. We are going to go back to our regular scheduled podcast programming. All right, guys. I hope you enjoyed that interview with Joey. Oh my goodness. I wish you guys could have seen me just geeking out about it. Wait. Actually, you can see me geek out about it. This week I'm going to put out an extra content video on my YouTube channel. Woohoo! So basically, I've been putting together over the past 2 days how I produce my podcast and how I put everything together basically, and I kind of got my reaction to before Joey popped on the Zoom, and I was freaking out a little bit, so really funny stuff. So I'm gonna put out an extra content video sometime this week, so make sure that you turn on the little notification button on YouTube to make sure that you get notified every time I upload a new video, because I don't have a schedule. I just kind of post them whenever I feel like it. All right, so we have some things to go over. Before we do that, we have to do yet another affiliate read. Bear with me, everybody. Gotta make that money. All right, so what I'm going to talk to you guys today is about Instacart. So imagine it was possible that local and fresh groceries can be literally delivered to your front door in as little as under an hour. Like, no joke. You would have a ton of free time to do a bunch of other stuff. You wouldn't have to worry about going out to the grocery store, COVID, all that stuff. And yeah, Instacart is where you can do all these things. Instacart gives you unlimited grocery deliveries for one low monthly fee, which is compared to some other apps you might use that you might have to, pay some extra things here and there, blah, blah, blah. No, Instacart is one low monthly fee, and they can deliver to your front door in as little as an hour. You're not even tied down to just one store. You can shop at several stores. They'll pick everything up for you. There's an actual on-hand shopper doing all the shopping for you. They'll select your items based on your preferences. They'll even keep some of your more delicate things, very, very carefully, like your eggs. They won't get damaged or anything like that. So it's a person that's actually there shopping at these stores for you. So if you want to start your 14-day free trial of Instacart, click the link in the show notes. And so that way Instacart knows that you were sent by me and you help support our show. So Instacart is a way that you never have to step foot in a grocery store again. Okay, everybody, we had some major news go down, all right? Major. And I'm sure you guys know what I'm talking about. We are going to talk about Carson Wentz. And because Carson Wentz is officially an Indianapolis Colt. He is a Colt, which is blowing my mind, to be quite honest with you. I was not expecting this to happen. I know last week, if you guys watched or listened to the episode last week with Steffi Smalls, we talked about the Colts and how we were like, nah, it's not really going to happen. Maybe the Bears or the Eagles might just end up keeping him. But basically, just a couple days later, this news broke that the Colts were going to be giving the Eagles a 3rd round pick and a conditional 2nd round pick for Carson Wentz to go to the Colts. And that's it. That's all the Eagles received for him. I didn't think that, they were going to get all this stuff for Carson. We said he is not, at that Matt Stafford level of getting 1st round picks. The conditional pick, that is the 2nd round pick right now, if Carson Wentz plays, I believe, 70% of the snaps for the Colts and makes it to the playoffs, it becomes a 1st round pick, or if he plays all of the snaps. So, it could become a 1st round pick, but we all know how the Eagles draft, and which is horrible. And the thing is, too, right now, Carson is gone. Logically, you would think Jalen Hurts is now QB1, right? Jalen Hurts now has the starting job in Philadelphia. No. They want to make it a competition. They want to take their 6th overall pick in the draft to draft another quarterback. And let me tell you, this is like, I'm heated about it. I'm not even an Eagles fan. This is exciting for me as a Giants fan that I don't have to worry about this, that they're in shambles right now. However, Jordan, as many of us know, Jordan is Sporty Jordy, a very, very good friend of mine, is a huge Eagles fan. She is just in shambles right now. Just ridiculous, not great, not doing good. The Eagles also not doing good. So they get this 3rd and 2nd conditional pick. And what I think you might ask, who won this trade? The Colts. The Colts absolutely won this trade. Some people might be saying, Carson is not a good quarterback. Carson is not good. We saw him just struggle so much this year. And let me tell you something. Carson Wentz is not a bad quarterback. Carson Wentz is, with the right tools, he is a very good quarterback. He was literally drafted 2nd overall in the draft behind Jared Goff, who, we could debate this topic if we really wanted to. But, and just to throw it in there really quick, I read a tweet that said the Eagles had given up 5 picks to move their way up to get that 2nd pick in the draft to draft Carson Wentz. 5 picks. So now in return, they are not only $33.8 million in dead cap space, but they also only got 2 picks back for him. So it's just bonkers how awful this front office is for the Eagles. It is just not good. But the Colts won here, and I'll give you several reasons why. One of them is their head coach. Their head coach is Frank Reich. Frank Reich was the offensive coordinator for the Eagles, and he was there during their Super Bowl run. Now, while Carson Wentz didn't perform in the Super Bowl because he was hurt, he performed that year. And a lot of people will argue with you that 2017 Carson Wentz was an MVP candidate Carson Wentz, which I could agree with. I could definitely agree with that. And people have also said that Frank Reich is the reason why the Eagles won that Super Bowl to begin with, not Doug Peterson. So it's definitely going to be good for Carson and Frank to reunite with one another. They know their schemes. They know how the other one works. And as a head coach and a quarterback, that's a much different dynamic than a quarterback with his offensive coordinator. So I think that could be really good. And also, they have an excellent offensive line. And to give Carson the opportunity to actually throw the ball to receivers who can catch the ball for him is going to be a game changer for Carson Wentz, because he didn't have any of that in Philadelphia. Absolutely none of that. So I think that with that, their run game with Jonathan Taylor, it's going to be ridiculous in Indianapolis. I can see what we saw in 2017 before Carson Wentz got hurt. I can see this reigniting and becoming like that in the Indianapolis Colts next year. It's going to be very interesting, especially that division can be competitive with the Titans and everything like that. It's going to be very good, I think. I hope, because at this point, we need, like, Carson Wentz does have the potential, but he's just not showing it to us right now. I want to see, like, good players play well, and I think Carson Wentz has that in him, that potential to be a good player. So that's what's going on right now. I know Joey and I talked about it a little bit in our interview, but Carson, that bomb, it's just one of the many ripples that is going to happen this offseason. We are going to have bombs left and right. I'm waiting for the J.J. Watt stuff to go down. It is going to be insane when J.J. Watt lands on a team. Everyone's going to freak out. I'm telling you, no matter where he lands, they're going to freak out. So this offseason, like I've said once, I will say it many times throughout this entire spring and summer, this offseason is going to be wild. And I am stoked. So stoked. Okay. As you can see, I'm like super hyper today. I have some chamomile tea next to me that my mom made me because I drank too much caffeine today and I'm very hyper. So, as you can see, I'm just like, and I'm trying to like, but also keep the energy up. I'm struggling. I'm struggling so bad. All right, let's get into our first segment on the show and my favorite segment on today's show, Tea Time. Tea Time is my favorite segment on the show because we delve into the hot, steamy gossip of the sports world, and this week, not football related. Once again, we're getting some tea from all over the place. This is some baseball tea, and it's not even from a team that I don't even pay attention to. It's from the New York Yankees. The New York Yankees have got tea, and as you can see to the right of me, oh my god, please just ignore the fact that I did the L thing with my hands. My helmet back here, and I have a baseball somewhere around too. I'm a Yankee fan, and the Yankees, they are what they are. They're like the only team I really follow in baseball for the most part. But our tea time this week has to do with Domingo German, and he is a pitcher who has been suspended for the past 81 baseball days due to domestic violence. And we've talked about domestic violence recently on this show. So, while it is very important to talk about domestic violence, you can jump back to that episode that I talked about Chad Wheeler to hear my full thoughts on domestic violence and suspensions and sports and all that stuff. But Domingo German had domestic violence suspension. He returns. The Yankees are giving him a second chance. And he is being very cryptic. He is being so cryptic on Instagram. One of the things being, I really hope I don't butcher this. I've been practicing my Spanish every single day on Duolingo. But he posts in Spanish on his Instagram page. And he says, Todo acaba definitivamente. Una vez más, gracias por todo. ... MV. Hope I did not butcher that. MV standing for his significant other's name, Maravega. And basically what that phrase means is everything is definitely over. Thanks again for everything. So what's going on here? Obviously, I don't know if that's Domingo reaching out to his significant other, or if that's his significant other writing a note on his Instagram page. I'm not entirely sure what that exactly means, but there was some rumors on Twitter, because I did a little bit of digging, that she broke up with him. And she should. He committed violence against her, and she did not want to be with him anymore. That is valid. They were also saying that it's possible Domingo might be suffering some depression, which is also valid, but not an excuse to commit domestic violence against your spouse or your significant other. So this whole thing, and then he ended up posting another thing in Spanish as well that said, I'm ready. And it might have been in return to what manager Aaron Boone has been talking about of the New York Yankees. So when this first, this Instagram story went up of him giving this phrase saying everything is definitely over, everybody kind of wanted to know what was going on here, and they asked Aaron Boone about it. Aaron Boone was concerned, said he was concerned, and reached out to Domingo, made sure that he was doing okay, made sure that everything was fine. And again, while there's no excuse for domestic violence, if he is suffering from mental illness, they still want to make sure that he has the help that he needs to, work with the illness that he does have. So he wanted to make sure Domingo was okay. He was very concerned about it. And then he talked to him about things we need to keep private and things we need to put out to the world. So he must have let him know, like, hey, maybe you shouldn't post that on your Instagram story. Maybe we should keep that to ourselves and deal with it internally. If you want to talk to me about it, talk to me about it. If you want to talk to your teammates about it, talk to your teammates about it. I believe they talked to Zach Britton, who's also a pitcher, about, what the relationship is like. Basically, the Yankees are giving Domingo a second chance here. While what he did was awful, they seem that, they see that he has the opportunity to be a better person and to come back and perform well for their team. It's a little bit shaky for me. I'm not entirely sold on that. Like I said, I would go back to the episode where I talked about Chad Wheeler, and all this stuff is very, fresh in terms of people having discussions they don't want to have discussions about, and that's domestic violence and such. So when I talked about Chad Wheeler, I was like, this is ridiculous how some of these guys get suspended more games for weed than they do for hitting their girlfriend. So it's a whole thing. Again, I don't want to go all into it again, but this tea is just the fact that Domingo's putting all this stuff out there. Aaron Boone obviously doesn't want him to be putting all this stuff out there. The Yankees are a very conservative team. They're a very traditional team. They probably want to keep things more internal. They want to keep everything in. So that's our tea for this week. And I actually have a cup of tea today. So that's really fun. It's gonna be interesting to see how Domingo comes into this season, if he's someone that the Yankees can keep around, or if things are gonna happen again, or he's just not the same player he was before. I trust Aaron Boone, and I trust what he can do for the Yankees. All right, everybody, let's get into our next segment on the show, and that's our Let's Talk About It segment. And this week, we are going to talk about Joe Buck and Troy Aikman. So we're going to talk about Joe Buck and Troy Aikman. If you guys don't know who Troy Buck and Joe Aikman, oh my goodness. If you guys don't know Joe and Troy, they do football games. Joe Buck does baseball games. They're announcers. They're pretty much well known now. What I want to talk about is the recent story that has come out because of what Joe Buck said on calling cowards the herd. So Joe Buck basically came out and said that he will have the occasional drink. He has the occasional cocktail while in the booth, while broadcasting the game. And it started out when he was doing baseball, and he would have someone bring him the largest beer that the stadium carried, and he would sip it throughout the game. And it was kind of to show him, like, hey, have fun with it. You're working, but you're chilling. You have to have a good time, so on and so forth. And when he went to do football with Troy, he brought that same thing over, and they started doing more stronger drinks like tequila, and would have these drinks throughout the game to, again, keep them kind of loose and have a good time, and so on and so forth. There have been mixed reviews about this, and why I was just on my phone, if you're watching, was because I was looking at a poll that I put up on my Instagram story. So I put up a poll to ask you, the listeners, the followers, what you guys thought about this, and I have so far gotten no votes that said that this entire thing is unprofessional. And to be quite honest with you, I am not a Joe Buck fan. I'm not a huge fan of the way that he broadcasts, but he's been around for a long time, and I do pretty much respect him. But every once in a while I'm like, okay, Joe, all right, relax, like, take it easy. Troy too, sometimes I'm just like over what they're talking about when they're reporting on these games. But to be quite honest with you, unless you're like throwing them back every hour or something that you're doing them, and you get 3 or 4 drinks in your system, that would be a problem. But if you're having one drink that you're sipping throughout the whole game, football games, to say the least, are 4 hours long, so I don't even know how one drink would even do anything for you over the course of 4 hours. But nonetheless, I don't really see a huge issue with this. Would I do it myself? Probably not. I don't think that would be my thing. I have done it. If you guys have seen me on the brew party, obviously my friend Andy Hopper, he has that whole thing where, you kind of have a drink and you talk about sports, and I've done it, and I'll kind of feel it towards the end a little bit. Like, I'm like, oh, like, I feel good and I can talk about things more. So I get it, but I personally wouldn't do it. It's really not, I don't think it's that big of a deal. And some people were like, oh my God, how unprofessional of these guys to be drinking on the job. If I had to, okay, is there, you can compare jobs here. If you're a construction worker drinking on the job compared to someone sitting in the booth watching a football game reporting on it, think those are two very different professions to be drinking during. And again, they're not throwing them back. They're not getting drunk. They're just having it to kind of make themselves loose. And Joe Buck came out and had a string of tweets that I won't even go into, basically talking about how it's also a reminder for him to have fun while he's working, which is fair. Again, very, very fair. So that's what I wanted to talk to you about today. I'm not going to go on too much about it because I don't want to make this episode, a million years long. So, if you guys want to leave comments or, on Twitter, Instagram, whatever, let me know what you guys think, because as of right now, I'm not really annoyed by it. I don't really think that it's a huge issue. So that's all I have to say, and that's what we talked about this week. All right, next we got our tweet of the week. Tweet of the week this week goes to Mr. JJ Watt, and it's current events. We got stuff going on with what's his face, JJ. So JJ Watt put out this tweet on Sunday, and someone basically replied to another one of his tweets and said, "You want to sign somewhere or nah?" And I guess that kind of rubbed JJ the wrong way, and he quoted that tweet and said, "I scroll through DoorDash for an hour before I pick a restaurant, man. You're going to have to give me a second to choose a new team and city." And to be fair, give the man a break. He doesn't have to do anything to please you, okay? And to be quite honest, absolutely. I think that also goes for looking for something to watch on Netflix or Hulu or Disney Plus or whatever it is. I feel like I spend more time searching for something to watch than I do actually watching something. So, JJ, I feel you. Take your time and do your thing, man. I'm cool with wherever you land. I'm cool with it. All right. Time to end off our show, people. We are going to do our feel-good story of the week, and basically, this is the best story ever, and it brought me so much joy. I'm so excited. I'm so excited. This was probably also part of our feel-good stories, a while back as well when it was announced, but Patrick Mahomes and Britney Matthews have had their baby. Little baby Sterling Sky Mahomes was born on February 20th, 2021, and oh my God, I haven't even seen a picture of her yet, but I can tell she is the cutest thing on the planet. The announcement that they put out, both Patrick and Britney put it on their Instagram, Twitter, all that stuff. It was a picture of Britney from the neck down with her finger and Sterling's finger, and Britney has a necklace on that's a nameplate that says Sterling across it, and they said Sterling Sky Mahomes, born this day, blah, blah, blah. And oh my God, I'm just so happy for them. Patrick Mahomes is a Papa Mahomes. And I forget if it was on my podcast or Andy's podcast, my friend Andy Hopper. He said something about dad strength for Patrick Mahomes, and to be quite honest, I can 100% see that being a thing. Patrick Mahomes is gonna come out here and just be a huge dad and just be a quarterback and be fantastic. And I'm so excited for them. Huge congrats to Patrick, Britney. I hope Sterling has, she's doing well, mom's doing well, all that stuff. And it seems like things are going fine for them. And then they're going to get married soon, which will probably be another feel-good story of ours. But until then, Sterling Sky Mahomes was born, and it just filled my heart with joy. All right, everyone, that's going to do it for our show this week. Oh my goodness, this was such a fun one. And again, shout out to Joey for coming on and being a fantastic guest on my podcast this week. I really appreciate it. So everyone, don't forget to follow or subscribe on all podcasting platforms, and leave a review. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, The Girl Who Talks Sports, and also, click the little bell to turn on notifications to make sure you get notified every time we upload a new video. And finally, don't forget to follow us on socials, TGWTS Podcast on both Instagram and Twitter. Everybody, I hope you all have a fun, fantastic sports-filled day, and I will see you guys all next week. Bye!